Hey guys, it's Danny. Today it is time to put a stop to an experiment that I started not too long ago, maybe 3 months ago or so. Yep, it's been 3 months and I can already tell that I am not okay with doing the Laelia experiment anymore, the rocky versus the bark and sphagnum moss setup situation, and I will tell you why. So that will be the main idea of the video. I'm going to show you how these orchids are doing. We're going to make a final update, if you will, on this experiment, but also we're going to touch base with switching setups or trying out setups and the, let's say, general opinion on this, because I do have some stuff to say. But first, let's compare a little bit the growth in these 3 months between the Laelias potted in bark and sphagnum moss and the ones in rocks. At this point, things might start to get a little bit more obvious. This is Laelia flava. She has from the beginning been potted in this organic, fully organic setup, and these are the results. Now, this orchid was pretty healthy, pretty decent root system. And here she is today. That root system continued to branch and grow, and in my opinion, she looks pretty great. This is Laelia Orchids. From the beginning, this one had a decent root system as well, and to this day, the root system is still decent, but not as decent as this, or at least not as flourishing. And if we take a close look at the root tips and how the roots are behaving, do we see that some of the roots have actually stopped growing? Their root tips are blackened. And also, if we take a bigger picture look, do we see that the roots are trying to follow more the line of the sphagnum moss and not going and growing in between the rocks all that much? Yeah, that's not cool. And it's not the only thing that's happening. I did not fertilize these orchids from the very beginning because they were establishing, and at least a month or so I don't fertilize establishing orchids in particular and new orchids generally. But I did start to fertilize, and looky here, I'm having deposits. Can we see it on the rocks here and here? Thank you for the music, Maya. This is not mold, it is actually salt. I investigated it. So this is the first little bit of red flag for this setup. Now let's look at the opposite pole. Here are the orchids which actually were rootless, I do believe completely, when I received them. One went into the rocky setup and the other one in the organic. Let's see a little bit what's happening. Let's take a look at the rocky setup. That was very informative, Joey, thank you. So here we have some new roots sprouting. Let's just see about those root tips, shall we? Oh no, the root tips are not growing. Since I'm going to repot this, I'm gonna dig a little deeper, and we do see some roots here, but do we see they're actually in the sphagnum moss, but whatever touches the rocks, it's not doing all that great. Let's see, we have another root here. Let's see if this one continued growth. Let's see. Oh no, it does not look good, right? Looking at the organic setup, I don't think I have roots just yet inside the pot, but at the top, I can see a lot of roots growing and sprouting and actually continuing their growth. Look at this root tip. See, it's growing and it's pretty long. It's nothing like the other case that I showed you. And this orchid is slowly but surely getting hydrated. It was super dehydrated at some point, but it is looking very good. And lastly, two Laelias which were so-so. This one I think had a little root, this one 2 or 3 roots. Let's see how they're doing in comparison. Again, there are no roots in the pot, but at the top I can see quite a lot of growth, which is very encouraging, and the orchid is not all that dehydrated anymore. While in the rocky setup, not only do we have unhappy root tips, we also have a mold outbreak. Yep, not looking great. The orchid herself is still looking pretty decent, pretty okay, don't have major issues. I have a new growth there, but if I let this continue, yeah, I don't know where I'm going to reach. I do see some deposit as well here on this rock. No, I don't really like how things are going. So this is how my Laelias are doing right now. Now, as much as I love to experiment, I love to discover new setups and see how they work and just learn and gain experience, I never want to do a particular thing. And this is stress out my orchids knowingly as much as to not be able to recover them. And here's the thing, these are new orchids, I just purchased them. They were in pretty okay condition when they arrived. And theoretically, this setup is not a bad setup. We'll get to that. So what my vision was, I will get to see if one will bloom better than the other, or one will grow better than the other, in the sense that it will grow faster, bushier, things of the sorts. I did not count on the fact that one will start to suffer while the other will thrive. When that happens, I'm not okay with things, and the experiment simply doesn't move on. No matter if I lose some views, no matter if some people will not understand it and will be disappointed, let's put it like that, which happens a lot whenever I finish a project. No, for me, what's important is that my orchids are healthy. And the thing is, the more you stress an orchid, the more that stress accumulates, the more the situation will continue, the harder it will be for that orchid to be recovered. So I do believe that right now I am in that point where these orchids are not happy, and the more I stress them, the harder they will be to recover, and I don't want that. This experiment was not to see how they tolerate this medium, it was about how one will excel in comparison to the other. But now I'm seeing that that's not the case. All of these guys are doing great, all of the others are sad, and I'm not okay with it. So that's why I'm putting a stop to the experiment, and I guess from now on we're gonna see if rupicolous Laelias can be grown in fully organic media, and we'll see what the result of that will be. Now let's address a little bit the setup situation, media changes and things of the sorts. Now, inherently, this setup is not bad. There is a reason why many people wrote articles about it and stated that it works much, much better than organic medium. And the reason is, it does work, but here's the catch. It doesn't actually work for everybody. And this is something that, sadly, not everybody understands. Whenever I do these setup changes or setup experiments and find out that something doesn't work out all that great for me, I always get a few comments saying, oh, I did that and it worked perfectly fine for me. Or, that material is perfectly fine, you don't know what you're talking about. And to put it into perspective, this is like saying peanuts are super good. I eat peanuts all the time and nothing bad happens to me. And you say this to a person who is allergic to peanuts. Things don't really work out the same for each and every one of us. And setups and orchids and media are exactly the same. Environments, lifestyle, the materials, the brands we have locally, all of these will influence our outcome. Does this mean that something is inherently bad? No, but it can teach us something. For example, it can teach me that here in my environment, materials which are not water absorbent are not all that preferable. It also teaches me that this setup in my environment is just not all that friendly with decaying matter, which we all have on our orchids. Where is that orchid? Oh, this is the one. So a little bit of mold, a little bit of decaying sheaths, we all have them. But different setups will deal with this better than others. Now, here's my suspicion. In an organic medium, we have all sorts of soil dwellers, all sorts of mites. We did that video last week with the little mites in the medium. Check it out in the description if you didn't see it. Well, all of those mites actually feed on tiny little molds and decaying matter. They don't feed on the orchid itself. And this predominantly in organic medium is not super friendly to those mites because they just don't live in the conditions that this medium can provide. As a result, molds will flourish because we just don't have the soil mites. So that is a suspicion. It doesn't mean I'm correct. It just means that this is what I suspect is happening. And to add to this, there are other things such as what is very predominant in my climate or environment at this moment. Is it fungi spores? Maybe it is because it's March. And maybe in March here in my environment or my climate, these fungi spores are prevalent and they have this outbreak. Combined with the fact that there's nobody to consume them, well, hey presto, we have what we have here. It could be something of the sorts. And it could be that in this situation, all those mites are keeping things under control. Does it mean that your environment will be prone to the same things? Absolutely not. Maybe in your environment there are other types of soil dwellers, or maybe not. Maybe you have different types of bacteria, because not only mites feed on these decaying pieces of matter, bacteria and microbes as well. Maybe you have something that I don't. So all of these things can combine and give an outcome. But this certainly does not mean that the setup is bad. But it does mean that whoever writes articles, be them experts or people with experience or people without experience, they have a bias. They have a bias towards what they see. And whenever you try something else, you will discover things that don't really work out all that great. It's fine. Move on. Try something else. Try to understand what went wrong so you know what type of setup might actually better suit you. So, as far as I'm concerned, the Laelia project ends today. This is not working out all that great for me. We're gonna see how these rupicolous and rock-dwelling Laelias will do in a fully organic setup, which, you know what, up until now, it looks very promising, right? We're gonna see how they bloom, how they develop. Okay, so this is a little bit of an insert. I actually repotted all of these Laelias. I took some pictures and I drew some conclusions, really. I want to go back a little bit on that thing that I said about the microorganisms and also the soil dwellers that can actually have an impact. Well, I think now that they actually do have more of an impact than we imagine. Now, this is not necessarily based on an article that I just read or anything in particular. It's based on what I'm seeing first and foremost, and also my general knowledge of biology, which I'm trying to keep as vast as possible, but obviously I'm not a biologist. So here's the thing, while I was unpotting these orchids, I noticed that they did have quite a lot of molds on the medium, but also on the root system. And if you remember, when I switched them from the ceramis, I pointed out those tiny little black spots on the roots. And I said, this is not root burn. I know how root burn looks like. I've went through a whole saga with fertilizer root burn. It's not that. Well, what I don't think I said, but I've always kind of thought about it. I just didn't want to say it out loud because, hey, I don't like to spread misinformation if I'm not super sure. What it does look like is fungal spots. Yes, fungal spots on the roots, and those root tips which have only the tip blackened but not burned. It does not look like a burn. It looks like a fungal attack, a fungal infection of the sorts. And it kind of ties in, for me at least, with the idea of missing microorganisms. Even in our homes, there are some things that we can expect. Algae, molds, and this is because algae spores and mold spores are actually in the air. So these types of molds, they will be in the air. Some environments will have more than others, probably, maybe some will have different species than others. We all live in such different places that, you know, I cannot say for sure that what I have in the air is what you will have in the air as well. But from what I saw unpotting these orchids and having experience, a lot of experience with inorganic medium, I know for a fact that the quantity of insects, at least, is far less in inorganic medium than it is in organic medium. And this is one of the things that I think is stated on Ray's website as well with semi-hydroponics. Yes, that setup will not attract as many soil dwellers because it's just not their thing. It's not the environment in which they flourish. I did see soil dwellers even in semi-hydro, but compared to how many I have in these setups, oh, nothing like that. These setups with organic media have much more soil dwellers. Now, in some environments, this doesn't matter, probably. I'm sure of it. Some people have a much better experience with inorganic media than I had with some setups, but this doesn't mean that it will be the case for everybody. So, in my conclusions, based on what I saw today, I think that the vast number of soil dwellers, which we saw last week, and I assure you there are much more than that and much more diverse, has something to do with how the roots perform for me. And it's not only the ones that we see, there are also a lot of microbes which we cannot see and my digital microscope cannot show you, but maybe they have a very heavy word in the subject as well. And if rocks or ceramis is not their proper environment and they lack, well, I get black spots on the roots. Who would have thought? It's just my hypothesis, of course. I've always noticed it. It doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen with all orchids. It doesn't happen in all seasons. But this being winter and being kind of cool and kind of humid right now here, there we have it. Molds and fungal spores are everywhere, and it shows. And I feel that my whole issue with Ceramis is not only due to the fact that it stays way too dry in summertime, but also when it's wet, it doesn't promote beneficial microorganisms either. And some orchids will be more susceptible to molds than others. I think we all know by now that some orchids do have stronger roots than others. So that's my hypothesis. Very excited about it. I drew some conclusions. This experiment is failed. But it isn't actually, because it taught me something. So yeah, I will be sure to investigate it further. And regarding the mold that I already had, I got rid of it very easy with hydrogen peroxide 3%. I just sprayed it, but that's just something that treats mold right then and there. To completely eliminate the problem, I need those soil microorganisms, and I bet you that I will not have issues here. But yeah, just so you know, if you have a mold outbreak and you need to clear it fast and then solve your issue, you can use hydrogen peroxide 3%. Fungi hate the stuff. You can eliminate them really fast with hydrogen peroxide. So that's it. I will end today's video. I will unpot these orchids off camera. From now on, all the updates will be about them in organic medium and seeing how they do, seeing how they perform, and other conclusions that I might draw. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. You know the drill. Like or dislike it below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, and other fun orchid subjects. I hope you are all good, safe in your homes. I'm working this week a lot to provide videos for you, both on this channel and on my second channel, so feel free to check out the description below to learn more about my second channel. And if you wish to support the channel, of course, I have a merch store. You can check all of these stuff down below in the description. And with that said, I'll see you next time. Bye!